We are looking at Genesis 31, the whole chapter. But it's good to get a little bit of context before we look at the story here because we're starting sort of midway into Jacob's life. Well, actually, probably more than midway. So we left off with Abraham. So Abraham had a son named Isaac. Isaac had two sons, one named Jacob, one named Esau. Jacob tricked his brother Esau. Now, Jacob's name actually I think, means trickster. It means heel catcher or something like that. So the famous scene is where Esau comes in and he's hungry, and Jacob says, give me your birthright, and I'll give you some of this lentil soup that I made. And Esau takes the soup, and then also Jacob later on kind of pretends to be his brother and receives the blessing from his father. So Esau was technically the older son, so the older son got most of the inheritance and all of that. So Jacob ended up having to be on the run from his brother Esau, and his mother Rebecca sent him to the homeland out in the it says in the east. I mean, it was kind of Mesopotamia, that area, um, where Abraham came from originally, like kind of northern. I think he went back to Haran, which is kind of in northern. You were to place it today, kind of northern Iraq, that kind of region. So he traveled back there, and he sees Rachel, who's actually his cousin, his mother's brother's youngest daughter, uh, is very attracted to her, wants to marry her, agrees to work. Now, this is kind of where the whole Jacob and Laban thing starts, and we almost read the chapter before this to kind of give you a picture of it. But Laban is his uncle and also his soon to be his father-in-law. But Laban is also kind of in the same spirit as Jacob. He's very they're each of them are kind of always trying to put one over on the other. So Jacob agrees to work for 7 years for Rachel's hand in marriage, and on the wedding night, Laban switches out the sisters, and Leah, who's the older sister, ends up being the one that Jacob sleeps with that night. Now, how he didn't
Yeah,
recognize
I'd be real
now
ticked off
he
with
just
you.
he recognized her in the morning. We don't know if there was some kind of inebriation involved. It is. So so he's outraged when he wakes up in the morning and realized he married the wrong sister. So he talks to Laban, and Laban says, "Okay, I'll give you the other one. Just complete the time with this one. We'll give you the other one and work 7 more years for me." So he does that, and during that time, there's a whole drama with the sheep and who gets what, and they're both kind of trying to trick each other, and Laban's changing his wages, and so we eventually get here to chapter 31. Chapter 31 is when things kind of finally uh, get to the point where Jacob realizes he needs to get out of there. And it says, as you'll see in the beginning here, God actually tells him it's time to leave. Um, and also keep in mind, this is not a small undertaking, because this journey would have been hundreds of miles. Um, and Jacob would have been coming with, well, he had two wives, Rachel and Leah, and then they also gave him their kind of in the way that Sarah did with Hagar. They gave him their maids or female servants to have more, because they kind of got in this competition with each other to see who could have more kids with. It's a very weird story, but yeah. Anyway, so he had many kids, technically 4 wives, servants, flocks and herds. He was pretty wealthy. He got, Laban got wealthy while he was there. God blessed them in that way, and then also he went away with all the stuff that he thought was his, not just his family, but all the flocks and all the other things. So that's where we get to in Genesis 31. So he's going back home, and this also means that he'll have to face his brother Esau, which he's been avoiding doing because he left 20 years before, because Esau was going to kill him, and Esau was quite capable of doing that. So here we are. He is about to set out. Genesis 31. Take it away. You're reading from the
Complete Jewish Bible. Once again.
Okay. And I don't think you have to hold that super close, but if you do have any trouble hearing anybody, let us know. Let us know in the chat or in the Discord. We don't have a Discord. Let us know if you just put up your.
Just say if I'm hard to hear.
Yeah, say if you're hard. Hold something up.
But then he heard what Laban's sons were saying. Yaakov has taken away everything that our father once had. It's from what used to belong to our father that he has gotten so rich. He also saw that Laban regarded him differently than before. Adonai said to Yaakov, "Return to the land of your ancestors, to your kinsmen. I will be with you." So Yaakov sent for Rachel and Leah and had them come to the field where his flock was. He said to them, "I see by the way your father looks that he feels differently towards me than before. But the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength, and that your father has belittled me and has changed my wages 10 times. But God did not allow him to do me any damage. If he said, 'The speckled will be your wages,' then all the animals gave birth to speckled young. And if he said, 'The streaked will be your wages,' then all the animals gave birth to streaked young. This is how God has taken away your father's animals and given them to me. Once, when the animals were mating, I had a dream. I looked up, and there in front of me, the male goats which mated with the females were streaked, speckled, and mottled. Then, in the dream, the angel of God said to me, 'Yaakov?' And I replied, 'Here I am.' He continued, 'Raise your eyes now and look. All the male goats mating with the females are streaked, speckled, and mottled. For I have seen everything Laban has been doing to you. I am the God of Beth-el, where you anointed a standing stone with oil, where you vowed your vow to me. Now get up, get out of this land, and return to the land where you were born.' Rachel and Leah answered him, 'We no longer have any inheritance from our father's possessions, and he considers us foreigners, since he has sold us. Moreover, he has consumed everything he received in exchange for us. Nevertheless, the wealth which God has taken away from our father has become ours and our children's anyway. So whatever God has told you to do, do.' Then Yaakov got up, put his sons and wives on the camels, and carried off all his livestock, along with all the riches he had accumulated. the livestock in his possession, which he had acquired in Padan Aram, to go to Yitzhak his father in the land of Canaan. Canaan. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, so Rachel stole the household idols that belonged to her father. And Yaakov outwitted Laban the Arami by not telling him of his intended flight. So he fled with everything he had. He departed across the Euphrates River and set out for the hill country of Gilead. Not until the third day was Laban told that Yaakov had fled. Laban took his kinsman with him and spent the next 7 days pursuing Yaakov, overtaking him in the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban in the Arami in a dream that night and said to him, "Be careful that you don't say anything to Yaakov, either good or bad." When Laban caught up with Yaakov, Yaakov had set up camp in the hill country, so Laban and his kinsmen set up camp in the hill country of Gilead. Laban said to Yaakov, "What do you mean by deceiving me and carrying off my daughters as if they were captives taken in war? Why did you flee in secret and deceive me and not tell me? I would have sent you off with joy and singing to the music of tambourines and lyres. You didn't even let me kiss my sons and daughters goodbye. What a stupid thing to do. I have it in my power to do you harm, but the God of your father spoke to me last night and said, 'Be careful that you don't say anything to Yaakov, either good or bad.' Granted that you had to leave because you longed so deeply for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods?" Yaakov answered Laban, "Because I was afraid. I said, 'Suppose you take your daughters away from me by force. But if you find your gods with someone, that person will not remain alive. So with our kinsman to witness, if you spot anything that I have which belongs to you, take it back.'" Yaakov did not know that Rachel had stolen them. Laban went to Yaakov's tent, then into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the two slave girls, but he did not find them. He left Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household gods, put them in the saddle of the camel, and was sitting on them. Laban felt all around the tent, but did not find them. She said to her father, "Please don't be angry that I'm not getting up in your presence, but it's the time of my period." So he searched, but he didn't find the household gods. Then Yaakov became angry and started arguing with Laban. "What have I done wrong?" he demanded. "What is my offense that you have come after me in hot pursuit? You have felt around in all my stuff, but what have you found of all your household goods? Put it here in front of my kinsmen and yours so that they can render judgment between the two of us. I have been with you for these 20 years. Your female sheep and goats haven't aborted their young, and I haven't eaten the male animals in your flocks. If one of your flock was destroyed by a wild animal, I didn't bring the carcass to you, but bore the loss myself. You demanded that I compensate you for any animal stolen, whether by day or by night. Here's how it was for me during the day. Thirst consumed me, and at night the cold. My sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I've been in your house. I served you 14 years for your two daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, the one whom Yitzhak fears, had not been on my side, by now you would certainly have already sent me away with nothing. God has seen how distressed I've been and how hard I've worked, and last night he passed judgment in my favor. Laban answered Yaakov, the daughters are mine, the children are mine, the flocks are mine, and everything you see is mine. But what can I do today about these daughters of mine or the children they have borne? So now, come, let's make a covenant, you and I, and let it stand as a testimony between me and you. Yaakov took a stone and set it upright as a standing stone. Then Yaakov said to his kinsmen, gather some stones, and they took stones and made a pile of them and ate there by the pile of stones. Laban called it Yegar Sahaduta, pile of witness in Aramaic, while Yaakov called it Gilead, pile of witness in Hebrew. Laban said, this pile witnesses between me and you today. This is why it is called Gilead, and also Ha-Mitzpah, the watchtower, because he said, may Adonai watch between me and you when we are apart from each other. If you cause pain to my daughters, or if you take wives in addition to my daughters, then even if no one is there with us, still God is witness between me and you. Laban also said to Yaakov, here is this pile, and here is this standing stone which I have set up between me and you. May this pile be a witness, and may the standing stone be a witness that I will not pass beyond this pile to you, and you will not pass beyond this pile and this standing stone to me to cause harm. May the God of Abraham and also the God of Nachor, the God of their father, judge between us. But Yaakov swore by the one his father Yitzhak feared. Yaakov offered a sacrifice on the mountain and invited his kinsmen to the meal. They ate the food and spent the whole night on the mountain.
Early in the morning, Laban rose and kissed his grandchildren. Is that in your translation? Oh.
One more verse.
Early in the morning, Laban rose and kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them, and Laban departed and returned home. Wonder why that's not in there, though. Interesting. Well, there was a small difference right at the end there. This ESV says Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac, and Drew says the one his father Isaac feared.
Oh.
So that's a significant difference. So there's a lot here. This was a long chapter, and there's a lot of things to talk about, but I'll try to stay on track. God willing, we'll stay on track. Our focus will be these phrases that go along with our series. But God did not permit him to harm me. It happens actually 3 times in this passage. Jacob says it once. Laban says it twice, and that'll kind of be the main focus here and why we're looking at this to begin with. But I wanted to ask, right at the beginning here, we see, and we talked about obedience some last time with Abraham, obeying God's word and his faith. God tells Jacob to go. God appears to him in a dream, as it said. It just says the Lord said to Jacob, "Return to the land." So God speaks to him directly, and he obeys. After he's been in this place 20 years, and he packs everything up and leaves, So he does obey what God says, but he does it in a way that he sneaks off. He kind of does it in his own way, which is he's always doing sneaky stuff. It's just what Jacob does. Um, is that do you see that as an important part of that? Of course, that's why Laban chases after him. But was he right to sneak off like that, or should he have had the faith to just go to Laban and say, "Hey, God told me to leave, and I'm going to leave." I know Laban later on says, "Oh, I would have, sent you off with a tambourines," but I don't know about that.
Well, he didn't say go to Laban and explain and then leave. He just said leave, right?
Yeah, he just said leave, but was it right the way that he did that? Because he kind of
Well, I
waited
think
until Laban was occupied,
he
and
was
he
tired of him saying, pray I don't change the deal farther or further. Uh,
whoa,
and yeah, I think it sounded like he recognized that God recognized that he was in a essentially less than forthright situation with Laban.
yeah. I mean, it was definitely a toxic situation, even though you could argue he was benefiting from being there. I mean, Laban did kind of have a point that when he arrived, he didn't really have anything except the clothes on his back, and he was running from his brother Jacob. But I mean, well, he did work for 20 years for Laban, so that's not nothing. But uh, just the way that he did it, though, it does kind of seem like it is in line with his character that he's trying to kind of avoid facing Laban, like he's been trying to avoid facing Esau, as we'll see later on. And you do see a transformation in Jacob's life kind of slowly happen, um, and God kind of enables that to happen. But that is kind of a theme in Jacob's life, as he's playing these tricks and he's running away.
Wow.
And
Well, I understand why uh, why Jacob did what he did, because every time there was some important change, Laban changed the context of their relationship. So he just felt that he needed to go ahead and get away to avoid another change in context of their relationship.
well, and it is miraculous that he left. I mean, given who Laban was and how he was, I mean, that you can see that God's hand was protecting Jacob and helping. God was helping him kind of in the background through this time.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
with the way, I mean, the flocks were his flocks grew, and I mean, Jacob was definitely enriched uh, with his stay there, and uh, uh, I really don't know that it's not made clear, uh, at least to me, but I don't know that Laban was uh, really financially lessened, uh, but he was,
Yeah.
but Jacob was definitely enriched, uh, and he would have needed to be to support four wives and
Yeah. 12
that
kids,
number
I
of
think.
kids,
Yeah.
and the slaves that would have been needed to support that size of household and take care of the flocks
Yeah.
that he would have had of that size.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have taken a lot
A lot of people.
people. And then, with God telling him he needed to get out of Dodge, I mean, that would have been more than well, let's go. That would have taken, to,
That would have taken some logistical effort to slip away with that much.
you don't just slip away
Yeah.
because, you think about the tents and the camels and the packing up and
Yeah.
That would have been a job. And I know they,
But it took Laban 3 days to realize they had gone.
yeah, Laban was out in the fields shearing the sheep, as if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that none of his household went out there and told him that Jacob was leaving. So it seems that they were at least sympathetic toward Jacob and what had happened over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So they watched Jacob, get up and leave.
Yeah.
And didn't quickly tell Laban that he was going.
Yeah.
But the property was not maybe as close to each other the way we live here. Property was extended, a lot of people, not a lot of people, a lot of spaces, a lot of events, just shearing sheep, takes 3 days. So really, maybe also he was not told, or they did not really, they were not sure that really Jacob is not here, his wives are not here, everything is gone. So he went and told the master. So maybe also took time. But about Jacob's leaving, certainly he has the right reason to leave. But I don't think he left the right way. The right way, certainly, it looks like to be just straightforward and strong and honest and go to his father-in-law and say, that's it, I'm taking everything I own and leave. And I don't think it would have ended safely. I mean, maybe he would have tempted him to stay, punished him to force him to stay one way or the other. But it's not the right way, really. But still, really, God did not punish Jacob for that. He just continued blessing him because I don't know why, but one reason came to my mind. We all are human beings and we do our mistakes. Some people avoid confrontations. And God's grace, really, as long as the purpose is okay, is good, and we have in our heart serving God and obeying Him. So He did not punish David for that.
Well, and we'll actually be getting into that in a little bit. Why did God protect? Why was God helping Jacob out a lot? Because Jacob wasn't necessarily. Maybe he was a little bit better than Laban, but he wasn't an upstanding moral person. That
Jacob was something of a jerk.
He was something of a jerk, but and there's a reason why God was helping him out. And also, it's curious that even with the acknowledgement that God was helping him, he still kind of maintains this distance. And he's one of the few people that refers to God as not his God, but the God of his fathers. Yeah. And even Laban says the God of your father. And that's important too, because that goes along right with the phrases that we're looking at, because but the God of my father has been with me, in verse 5.
Yeah.
And then later on, Laban will say, but the God of your father spoke to me last night.
Yes.
That has to be intentional. That
absolutely.
Do you see that as But why would he put that distance between him and God? I mean, he's known as the guy that wrestled with God or wrestled with an angel of the Lord, or
It hasn't, he hasn't had that personal contact with God yet. He hasn't had that that real intimate touch with God yet. That, well, it's come, but he's always kept God at arm's length.
Yeah.
And
but it does seem like he's perfectly fine with God making him rich.
oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah, he's
he
fine
doesn't
with that.
want the relationship.
But it's been, you know, the God of my father, and he has obeyed his father's God. He has recognized God.
But it's more like a duty, or like it does seem kind of transactional a little bit, just because he is keeping God at an arm's length.
He is keeping God at arm's length, but
if that's even possible to do, because God is everywhere. But he's keeping. He's not.
Yes, but he's recognized God. He recognized God as he left home.
Yeah.
I mean,
when he slept on the stone of
when
destiny.
he slept on the stone, he recognized God, and here he recognizes that he's recognized God acting in his life. But God has not been intimately connected with him yet.
But if I may, it could be confirmation, because really he is saying that it's not just my God, it's my God. He is my God. He is the God of my parents, the God of my grandparents, the God who promised us, the God who helped me succeed for 20 years. So it's more confirmation of God, the God of my father and my grandfather, which is the real God. So he is admitting more and more. That's a way. I mean, I remember sometimes when I pray, God and the God of Dr. So and Mr. So and God of Mother Teresa, God of Saint. I mean, I am not saying you are their God, not mine. I'm saying the God of all these saints and all these heroes.
Oh, I mean, I can appreciate what you're saying about that, but I think it's important that God be recognized personally. At least I know for me, it has been important that God is my God. The God I recognize as mine. Yes, I know I know he's the same God as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But the thing that matters to me is that he's mine.
God, of course, I do too.
Well, and one weird thing about this family, or this extended family, is you have this one branch of the family with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that serve God, and then you have Laban's branch of the family that are as we'll see here, that are pagans, essentially. I mean, they're not, you would think they would have heard of this God that Abraham worships and the things that were done for Sarah, and
Well, they have
You
no
know.
reason.
yeah,
They have no reason
yeah.
to know that.
I'm just kind of astounded, though, that they have no. I mean, Laban's a major figure in the Bible in Genesis, and he doesn't have any kind of. He just sees God as just kind of another one of the gods that people. Well, you have your gods, I have my God.
Well, yeah, but he has not had any experience with the God of his brother.
And I mean, it could also be not that we kind of can put ourselves in these time periods. We think about witnessing to people today, and I'm not necessarily saying Jacob should have been trying to convert Laban, but maybe he should have been trying to testify to Laban, like, hey, I saw these angels going up and down on this ladder. It doesn't seem like he ever tried to have any kind of, and even his wife Rachel took the household god, the little idol.
Well, you see, that was to keep her father. She was still attached to the old gods.
Yeah.
She took those gods to keep her father from calling the wrath of the old gods down on them. There was that reason for her taking her father's gods, so her father could not call the wrath of those gods down on them.
Well, and we'll see later on. Well, we won't see, but it happens later on in Genesis that when Jacob gets renamed, he tells them to put away the idols. But that's not the case right now. And you have this. It is an interesting sort of subplot of this story. The whole, Rachel taking the. You have this representation of, you have God who is actively protecting Jacob and actually having power over situations, and then you have these idols that can be taken and sat on.
Yeah.
It does kind of seem like the author here is bringing that to our attention. Like she took the gods, and she took the god and she put it under her cushion, and
Well, yeah.
whereas
remember why she took those gods.
Yeah.
She took those gods to protect her family from the wrath of those gods.
But it does kind of show the powerlessness of the idols in relation to God.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're just these little physical objects that you can. But I mean, it is true that these, like the Canaanite gods, I do think they're tied to demons, and there is some kind of something there, but they're still associated with these, here's my little idol here. I'm gonna take it with me and tuck it under my, saddle, and
yes,
I'll have them good luck. And
some can certainly be tied to demons.
Yeah,
absolutely. But they are not effective in the face of the Almighty. And but in this overall picture, they are certainly ineffective.
Yeah.
But with Rachel still believes in the power of these gods, at least to some extent, or she wouldn't have taken.
Yeah.
And her father would have believed in the power of these gods. So she believes she's protecting her family. And so she is serving that, and Jacob has not taught his family who God is.
Yeah.
I mean, he has not shared his father's God with his family. He is, again, it's his God is not his personal God.
But is it one of the possibilities that came to my mind? Maybe that God that she stole is a statue of gold, and it's expensive, and she wants to just steal it. But I guess my guess is that it is what you are saying, that it is God to her and has some protective value, and that's why she took it.
Yeah, I'm not denying that it may have some.
Oh yeah, I have
business
heard
besides.
that it was probably made out of something.
And
You know.
didn't she mention not getting an inheritance?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the whole family's tricking each other, and you know.
Delicious.
Oh, yeah.
That word breath doesn't come to mind very often.
I like that word.
Get that in there before I forget it.
So I mean, in light of that, this kind of question was asked a little bit earlier, but you know, why does we know the kind of person Jacob is right now, and why does God bother? I mean, why is God helping? And I guess the answer could kind of be obvious, but maybe not. You know, why, despite all of Jacob's flaws, you know, why does God help him? Why did God choose him over Esau? That's another question too. But you know, even now that he is the one, you know, it's interesting to see that Jacob hasn't really done anything. You know, we're told that Noah was seen as righteous, so God decided to give him a chance. You know, God saw something in Abraham and Abraham's faith, and Abraham was a pretty honorable guy from the beginning, but Jacob's kind of a different character. He's different than Abraham. He's kind of a trickster. He's kind of a transactional guy, you know. Yet God chooses him.
Gotta look. I think we have to look at Jacob in the long term, because Jacob becomes, well, Jacob does not so much become a different man in the long term, but it's the family of Jacob that is important. And I think that is what God sees.
Well, this, I mean,
God is producing the nation that he wants to become the nation to carry his faith.
And the Messiah,
And
Jesus.
Messiah.
You know, I mean, it does kind of all point to
Grace.
grace. Yeah, God working through this, because this will be something that comes up again and again in the family line of Jesus. You know, this one of Jacob's sons, Judah, tries to. Now Judah does turn his life around kind of in the end, but
Yep, he does.
he was worse than Jacob. I mean, he tried to, there's a whole story of Judah and Tamar, and
Yep.
I mean, well, I won't get into it, but it just kind of showcases the fact that this family has its issues. I mean, all of our families do, but this is supposed to be the Messiah's
The roots of the Messiah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's one thing that the Bible is very clear about, is that people have faults and that people can change if we give ourselves to the Lord, and He will give us the power to be different if we rely upon Him.
But it also relies, I think we meet him at the foot of the cross. And yes, but ultimately at the foot of the cross. And it's grace. He meets us where we are.
Yes.
Because none of us could achieve anything without that grace.
We have to get to know God. And that's the importance that we see throughout Scripture, that God becoming personal to the individual changes everything.
Yeah.
And we're going to see that with Jacob.
Well, and something we can gain from just looking at Jacob's life, and the fact that he, for a very long time, he kept God at an arm's length. He didn't really seek out a relationship with God the way Abraham did. But God still helped him out for the sake of this family line that was going to,
For the sake of what was to come.
For the sake of what was to come, not because he deserved it. But you see the results of what a life, what success without that closeness with God can give. What can result from that? Because if you look at Jacob's life, it does seem like, if you look at just the outside at this point, he has wealth. He has a lot of kids. He has a lot of servants. He has a lot of animals. He has wives. I mean, women fighting over him basically earlier on. I mean,
Yeah.
How old is he at this point? Do you think?
He had to probably be about 40, right?
At least.
I was.
Between 40 and 50.
But you would. But later on, even when he goes to, because at the end of his life, he goes to meet Pharaoh, right? When Joseph, he's torn apart by what happens to his son Joseph, and he thinks he's dead, and then he has to go back to Egypt, and he meets Pharaoh, and Pharaoh asks him, "How old are you?" And he gives this weird answer that's like, different translations say it different ways, but like, the years of my wandering have been 130 years, or the years of my some translations say the years of my suffering, or he gives this very interesting answer that shows that he was never really a very happy person.
Yeah.
He was, despite having all of this, and the family struggles that resulted from the rivalry with his wives and his things that his kids would end up doing. Didn't they kill a whole village?
Yeah.
Later on, as revenge for their sister, that whole situation. so it's, even though it looks like he has it all together, it's not, doesn't, you know, and
He
so
regrets all of
he regrets all of it, yeah. So that's something to consider, or at least remind ourselves of. And he also spends much of his life both chasing things and running away from things. You know, he's running away from Esau. He's running away from Laban. And in a sense, he's kind of running away from God a little bit, you know,
Yeah.
just kind of, and he's chasing after, you know, he chases after the blessing in the beginning, trying to get his older brother's place. He's chases after Rachel, you know, so that's kind of another form of something people
blessing.
chase after. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's doing all this stuff with Laban about the, you know, the flocks and the herds, and you know, he's really, I mean, not that I can't blame him, you know, if somebody changed your wages 10 times and kept trying to,
Yeah.
if you had an employer that was family that you were working for 20 years that was taking advantage of you, I mean, of course you would not be happy about that, but
I would think there would have been great bitterness,
you know,
you know, at the deceit with Rachel and Leah.
Yeah.
And that kind of bitterness would be hard to let go because you have them both there reminding you,
Yeah.
and their arguments with each other.
Did he do a trick for the sheep to have the babies that will be given to him rather than the men?
yeah, that is interesting, because he does say God gave me a dream, but also earlier on it shows that he kind of deliberately
Yes.
made sure that the ones that were mating were the ones that he would get, you know, the stronger ones, you know, and if there were some weak ones, he made sure they would look like the ones that Laban would get, you know. So he was not entirely innocent.
He contributed.
He contributed to that.
But you know, we all blame him for everything really that he did. That's not right. But I think, I mean, I do it all the time, a lot, and I think everyone does some,
Yeah.
which really just materialize the human beings.
Yeah.
And that's why God appreciate that. And he said that because of his grace, just which is encouraging to us.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a very human thing to do, even at a small scale. You know, if you're at, I'm just thinking of the shopping carts here at the downstairs. You know, you see, you know, there are two left. One's covered in, you know, you see somebody else coming in. One's, not saying I did this, but one's covered in, you know, one's covered in this like sticky slime, and the other one's clean. Do you take the dirty one, or do you take the clean one?
Depends on
Nobody's
the
watching.
person.
You know, so
Hmm.
do you put your cart on the elevator too? People do that, you know, or leave it out, you know. But all have sinned and fallen short.
That's right.
I'm sure
Forgotten. There's a lady that
The
anyway.
return the cart to the cart
Oh yeah, the test.
test.
Return the cart test. You know, that is
I don't always pass that one, but I'll tell you why. Because where if they don't put the cart corral within a reasonable distance, like say they put the cart corral at the front of the store, like right in front of the store, not even in the parking lot. No. That's them needing a message to fix the way that they do things.
Hmm.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they
Yes.
should hire somebody in need that can push carts.
That's right.
Yeah, sure.
They're trying to get away from doing that, you know. But yeah, I mean that is kind of a good test, because it's something kind of small that you can kind of, you know, it's not necessarily like you're stealing money or something like that, but it is, you know, do you take, you know, But anyway, we're all sort of in the same bucket when it comes to that, I guess. Different degrees, but
There are things I believe that we all do that show our imperfections.
Yeah.
And the way we show those imperfections are different according to our particular personalities.
Yeah.
But I do believe there are none of us that are perfect. And if any of us would take just a few minutes to take a good look at ourselves, we would see that.
I try to help you with that.
Oh, thank you, my dear. I appreciate
Very nice to meet you. My pleasure.
But we see Laban and Jacob even down here at the end. I think it is interesting that they
talking about the stones.
go to such an extent to put up the witness, to establish the witness between them, that they will essentially be fair between them and not be adversarial.
Because they would have had to reach each other, they would have had to pass
Past
that
stones.
monument.
Yeah.
So.
And I thought that was interesting, that they established that point between one another,
Yeah.
As a significant boundary point.
And I've heard this, and take it with a grain of salt. But there's one stone, there's some symbolism in the stones. Like you have, because there's that, again, that subplot in the story of, you have the pagan culture that worships many different idols, and then you have monotheism, one God. You have in this monument, you have one stone, one big giant. I picture it as a big Stonehenge kind of thing, but they probably didn't lift something like it was a big stone, big rock, and then you have all these little stones, the pile of all these little stones,
Holding it up.
Yeah. So you kind of have those two represented there. But take that with what you will.
So the stones represent,
I heard that when I was in college or something. There was a professor that.
what do the stones represent?
The big stone was supposed to represent the one God, and then Laban. The pile for Laban was the pile that had all the pile of stuff.
Sees the gods between us.
But it does seem like in the story, Jacob puts both of them up, sort of. But it kind of insinuated that the pile was for Laban to represent polytheism. But
I think
it is curious that they had two distinct groups. They had the one stone, and then they had a pile of stones, or a heap, whatever it said there.
Well,
Did they not like, I don't know, when I was reading that, I thought they had set it up like one big stone surrounded by a bunch of small stones or something. Maybe
yeah, that's the way I took it. And, I don't know. I think about how large the big stone would have been, and trying to imagine how large a stone they could just have come up with.
Yeah.
Well, let me see what kind of rock we can pull out of our ass. I don't know how large of a stone they could have just come up with kind of on the spur of the moment, because I don't think they were gonna
the biggest
hang out there and drag a
they were building a pyramid.
rock there from some quarry somewhere. I do believe a rock would have been provided.
Yeah.
But I, still, needing the manpower for the rock. I mean, between Laban's men and Jacob's men, there would have been manpower enough to swing up a good sized rock. But
well, and just a side note, because I'm itching to mention it, but we won't go.
I was going to slightly change, not the topic, but the tact we're taking on the topic, so I don't want to say anything yet.
Oh, well, a rabbit trail to go down at some point, if you're curious, is the stone that Jacob put his head on when he had the vision. There's some interesting, that supposedly, I think the people in, was it Scotland? That's supposedly the stone that the monarch, when they get crowned, sits on underneath the
throne.
They believe that's the stone that Jacob put his head on. But anyway, that's just kind of, there are a lot of legends associated with that stone. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there as an aside. But these stones have some significant, as they do in the Old Testament, these monuments that people put up have
to wonder how that stone would have gotten from the Middle East
to
Crusades.
Well, now,
or what's his name?
how would they
the
have
Roman
identified
emperor.
that?
But well, okay.
Well,
I was
I
going
didn't mean
say
to get us
was,
off, but yeah, you.
I mean, creating that marker was very in Jacob's character, or consistent with his actions so far, because his the way he left was definitely a result of a lack of trust of Laban. All right, and the way that Laban might let him go, and then that stone was him also setting up and I mean, I can't necessarily disagree with it. But also, that was setting in a physical barrier to say, hey, this is where too far is. There's no, you're not pushing the boundaries any farther, So we both know and agree ahead of time that's the boundary. And I think that's widely applicable to, a lot of stuff. And him wanting to do that makes a lot of sense.
Isn't that smart for him to do that? A good
Yeah.
businessman?
Yeah, especially considering the way Laban had, changed the deal on him.
The wording is
Good point.
interesting of that one.
Oh yeah.
I will not go past this heap to your side upon you, and that you will not go past this heap and pillar to my side.
Oh,
Yeah,
that is interesting.
Huh.
Yeah, they won't go past it with intent of anger or whatever.
Would they ever meet again, even on friendly terms or joining in celebration, Laban and Jacob?
I don't believe so. But Laban is mentioned earlier on, because Isaac Isaac's, Abraham's servant goes to Laban actually to get Laban's sister Rebecca as Isaac's wife. So it's you meet him twice in Genesis, which is interesting. And speaking of boundaries and sort of this symbolism, this travel from Laban back to the homeland. Well, I guess the old homeland to the new homeland.
Back to Canaan.
Back to Canaan. He's leaving. So this is kind of the point in Jacob's life where he does kind of turn things around. He ends up getting renamed after this. They end up putting away the idols under a terebinth tree, no less. But I don't know what a terebinth tree is, but it specifically says that in the Bible. They put it under a terebinth. He's moving from this toxic kind of place where they worship all these different gods, and he's going back to where it's almost kind of like he's making this journey back to back to a relationship with God, back to this they even put aside the idols when they get close to getting back to Canaan. So you do kind of see this. There is a theme here to when it is time to move on from certain situations and obeying God's voice. When it comes to the time to move on and the time to make a change. If you think about it, I mean, it was part of God's plan that, and it is kind of weird to think about, I mean, he ended up there because he tricked Esau, which God doesn't approve of trickery, but, he ended up at this place and meeting his wives, and serving these 20 years. So, I mean, these 20 years, God kept him there for those 20 years, and then it was time to move on. And you just kind of wonder, the situations that we're in, that serve their time. I'm not saying we're swimming in a toxic soup right now, or we're in a toxic place or anything like that. But we've been in certain work situations or certain partnerships or different, things that we've had to do, just kind of like Jacob, just living life that, God has brought us through that. I mean, it just is kind of interesting how God used this whole situation to keep him safe from Esau.
Yeah.
Because Esau really was gonna
Kill
kill him. Yeah, he was serious about it because it tricked him twice and taken his birthright, and but God used this this situation to really mold Jacob, and it's interesting that God brought Jacob into the orbit of somebody that was just like him. So you do kind of see the the irony there, and
it was a good lesson for Jacob.
Yeah.
And God did that, I think, for a good purpose.
Yeah.
And when God believed that Jacob had perhaps learned his lesson or felt his lesson, he said it was time to go home.
Yeah.
And you think about it, he had been there 20 years. By that time, his oldest child would have been an adult.
Yeah.
For at least as far as they consider some time.
Yeah. And as we go on through the Bible, and I mean, even especially even in the New Testament, with Mary and Joseph having to go to Egypt for that time, and spend that time there, fleeing from Herod, and then go back. You have these instances where God kind of moves people around, and well, I mean, the Exodus story is a major one coming up here. You do kind of wonder what was the point of those 400 years, and there was a point to it, and there was a point to Jacob's time with Laban, and there was a point to Jesus, and as the Messiah having to go to Egypt for that time, and then wandering in the wilderness for 40 days before his ministry starts. And it's fascinating. I mean, we'll see it, of course, again and again, but you always see that God doesn't leave them there. God doesn't leave Jacob there with Laban. God, as the God steps in, as our series is titled, and tells him, all right, it's time for you to go. God tells Laban, don't say anything to him, good or bad. Real quick, right as we're kind of closing, I mean, I'll ask if there are any other thoughts on this, but why do we think God told Laban, don't say anything to him, good or bad? You would think,
Put by your head.
yeah, I mean, why not just say, don't say anything bad to him, or don't, but God said, don't say anything good to him either, which is interesting. Was it because Laban would probably use that to trick Jacob in some way, or Jacob would take it the wrong way, or?
I think it sounded like just total protection. Don't ever say anything to him because I am with him. Tell him good. Don't tell him good or bad or ever try to harm him in any way.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think it was, don't try
To flatter him.
don't try to influence him.
Don't try to influence them.
Because he will take it the wrong way.
Yeah.
He does not know how to take things. And we don't want any misunderstandings. I think that may have been at the heart of it. We don't want any confusion.
Yeah.
Because that poor boy is easily confused. And that may be part of it.
Yeah.
Is Jacob, in his heart, he is easily confused. He is so still, his life is hinged on trickery.
Yeah.
On trying to get the best on someone somehow, that he is thinking that the other person is trying to trick him or trying some way to, there has to be something that the other person is trying to get away with.
Yeah.
That you just have to be careful that does the other person have some ulterior motive? And that may have been it. He's just so used to tricking people that you don't want to get him even thinking anything like that.
But nonetheless, God protected him. And
Because God knows what's coming.
He's in prayer. We actually
yeah. Do we have any other thoughts before we live long and prosper?
Yes, I do have a miscellaneous note.
All right.
Terebinth tree.
Terebinth tree.
A terebinth tree is a cypress turpentine tree, which is a member of, well, let's see, it is a deciduous shrub or small tree native to the Mediterranean area, known for its strong resinous scent and edible seeds. It's a member of the cashew family.
Delightful.
Sounds good.
The
Yeah, it does,
plant,
doesn't it? Don't bring up cashews with you this year.
the plant is drought tolerant and prefers well-drained soil and is a deciduous tree. It has male and separate female flowers on separate plants.
Huh.
Interesting.
Well,
So,
and I think somebody has done some work in looking at the references to terebinth trees in the Bible, because there is something, speaking of symbolism, there is something to that, because it'll explicitly say they didn't just sit under any tree, they sat under a terebinth tree. There's some kind of, it's almost like the, you know, in movies where you have little cues, or, you know, like every time, I'm drawing a blank, every time you see an octopus, you know,
it has
something happens.
symbolism of some sort.
Yeah. So terebinth tree. So there's another homework assignment.
It does not say that it produces pistachio nuts, but it is an edible seed.
It is a source of sustenance
It,
for
it-
resin and wood and food. And
yes.
shelter.
So,
This also symbolizes strength and endurance in good literature.
I guess it
With the place of worship. Look,
place of
maybe the
worship.
Druids were Druids like that.
They worship terebinth tree.
Wrong.
Mediterranean druid.
Right, yeah.
When they were far from home. The
um,
Crusades.
in the Crusades, yes. Who was the Roman emperor that the Cairo, the Eastern Roman emperor, the Constantine?
Constantine.
Maybe Constantine. Constantine's, I think, his mother or something went to the
Oh, yes. it was
Holy Land.
Constantine.
Maybe she found the stone and had somebody bring it
That
back.
had the
you know.
sword in it.
The sword-
Brought
the
it back
sword.
to England. Oh, never mind.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, who knows? There are a lot of legends that are just like with Joseph of Arimathea. You know, some people believe that he was a world traveler.
Yes.
So
It's referred to also in Isaiah 6:13.
yeah, and I know they say it is that stone did, you know,
I'm sorry.
they did keep it, but
But I never heard of that. The terebinth tree whose stump remains when it is cut down, so the holy seed should come.
huh, interesting. Well, you learn something every day, I guess.
Maybe once or
Yes.
Any words from a faraway land? We will not be too specific, but not be too specific.
With regards to
Anything. Well, I'd wanted to open up the floor. So I guess we will conclude here, and I know we will likely be in Genesis again. Oh yes, I think the next passage we will look at will be Jacob has one of Jacob's second youngest sons, so child number 11 was Joseph.
Yes.
And Joseph, when he is in Egypt,
Has an adventure.
has an adventure, and he makes a statement to his brothers and says, "You meant harm for me, harm again. That's you meant to harm me, but God used this
Meant it for
situation.
good.
Yeah, you meant it for good. So that is what we'll look at next time. So
Okay.
we have our Egypt
That's
experts
over
here.
several
Yeah,
chapters as well.
Yes, you believe.
and Pharaoh's dreams and all that. So
Yes, indeed.
well, I'll hand it over, or you want this,
Yes.
and that. We thank you for joining us today and tonight.
Live long and prosper.